Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 10 seconds, we should be starting.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
Feet having to be in the last panel of an afternoon and after lunch. So we hope that the participants in the panel will keep this session lively and engaging so that it's worth your time. My name is Nancy Booker, and I'm a member of the Complaints Commission. I'm also the Director of Academic Affairs at the Aga Khan Graduate School of Media and Communications. Our panel this afternoon is a role of the Media Complaints Commission in promoting press freedom. And I'd like to invite the panelists in no particular order. Ms. Linda Musita, who's joining us online. I hope she's been able to log in. I will be introducing them later. Mugambi Laibuta, Dimas Kiprono, Professor Murej Makocheng, and the chair of the Complaints Commission, Mr. William Okech. I think they can sit anywhere. So the current commissioners have decided to sit on my right, and a previous commissioner and an advocate of the High Court have decided to sit on my left. We'll figure out why. So some background to this discussion. The Media Complaints Commission, as established under Section 27 of the Media Council Act 2013, has a mandate to mediate, investigate, and adjudicate over all media-related disputes. And since the commission was first set up in 2008, it has processed about 400 cases at an average of 35 complaints annually. It has also held several outreach activities to let the public and its key stakeholder, in this case the media industry, know that it exists and also what its mandate is all about. But while these gains are praiseworthy, we as present commissioners know that a lot more needs to be done to cement the Commission's role within the larger legal framework of media regulation in this country. We also continue to receive questions regarding our role. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues in the Commission about 30 minutes ago. She was on KTN in the afternoon, and the person who was hosting her was hearing about the Media Complaints Commission for the very first time. So I think what this shows is that there's much more that needs to be done in creating awareness among stakeholders and also among the public. And hopefully the discussion this afternoon will shed some light on some of those areas. Key among the questions that we are often asked, even amongst family members, so what commission is this that you're in, is what exactly is the mandate of the commission and what role does it play or can it play in promoting media freedom? So to try and answer this question and a couple more, we are joined by a distinguished panel of past and present commissioners and learned friends. On my extreme right is Mr. William Okech, who's the chair of the Complaints Commission, the current Complaints Commission. He will be making his keynote presentation, and then we'll follow that up with some questions. Next to him is Mr. Dimas Kiprono, who's a member of the Media Complaints Commission. On my immediate left is Professor Murej Makuching, who's an associate professor of media and communications, was my former boss. So if I misbehave, he has a lot to do with it. But he's an associate professor of media and communications at Multimedia University of Kenya. But he also served in the commission in the previous Complaints Commission. And next to him is Mr. Mugambi Laibuta, who's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and whose other passion is alternative dispute resolution. And so let me invite the chair of the Complaints Commission, Mr. William Okech, to make his presentation, and then we'll follow that up with questions. We are also joined, I'm told, by Linda Musita, who's the head of legal at Radio Africa Group. Linda, are you there? Can someone confirm that she's logged in? Thank you. Thank you very much, Linda. So over to you, William.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to this tail end session, where we basically want to look at this organization called as the Media Complaints Commission and how it does fit into the overall matrix of press freedom, not just in Kenya, but also in other jurisdictions, because the notion of a media complaints body is one that is common and present in most jurisdictions that exercise either self or co-regulation. Now, the functioning of media complaints bodies such as the Media Council Complaints Commission, it serves two purposes. The first one being that it offers a redress mechanism for those individuals or groups who may feel aggrieved due to either negative or inaccurate statements that are published, either on print, electronic, or even online platforms. Thereafter, it also serves the second role of being the custodian of public interest, because it serves as a bulwark or as a guarantor of government excesses, and thereby ensuring that there is freedom of expression and that self-censorship does not inhibit the practice of journalism. Because now the question will be, if not Media Complaints Commission, then what is the alternative? We all do remember that prior to the 2010 Constitution, a lot of individuals, both prominent and even not so prominent, who had issues with any publications, as first instinct, they will rush to our formal mainstream courts and file defamation suits. And concerns had been raised because some of those awards in terms of damages were very punitive, talking of 30 million shillings, Kenya shillings, 20 million, 10 million Kenyan shillings. So there was a situation whereby if there was an industry-driven body that can be able to adjudicate and look at media complaints, then the alternative will be worse, because you'll find a media enterprise having to pay very punitive damages as much as 30 million, 20 million. And definitely, without saying, that will be very dangerous because it will not only deprive those bodies of the much needed revenue, but it will also be a chilling effect on media freedom because now journalists will not want to cover certain stories for fear of those damages being slapped onto them. And a case in point that comes to light is the complaint by the then Minister of Finance, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, versus the Star and Jerry Okungu, may his soul rest in peace, where the current president and the former minister then had some certain complaints due to a publication that tended to refer to his ascension to power to that of Hitler. And that particular case was adjudicated upon by Professor Murej and the other team members who were there at that time, and they were able to give a fair determination and directed that that publication does issue an apology and thereby pull down that publication. So it is a much lesser evil than having been made or having been told to pay colossal amounts. Because you'll imagine, had that issue gone to our formal courts, you'll talk about damages ranging to 100 million or above. So then, what is Media Complaints Commission? This is a body that is established under Section 27 of the Media Council Act. That act does establish two bodies who are more or less like twin brothers. There is the council, or the board, that deals with policy, regulation issues in the industry, matters of accreditation, matters of standards and training. Then there is now the Complaints Commission that deals with matters, disputes, and adjudication in the media sector. The composition, as per the Act, it is chaired by an advocate whose qualification is pegged to that of a judge of the High Court, plus 6 other commissioners with knowledge, practice, and experience, not only in journalism, but media law, policy, business, and other related social sciences. So the role of this body called the Media Complaints Commission in guaranteeing and ensuring press freedom is outlined very neatly in Section 31 of that law that establishes it. And I can very briefly break them into 5. The 5 cardinal roles that this body plays to ensure that there is press freedom within this jurisdiction. The first one is that it secures the public interest by entrenching standards for the protection, redress, and remedies for all those individuals who may feel aggrieved by a certain publication. So if a newspaper, a television station, or an online platform does a story and someone feels aggrieved, then they do have a body to listen to that complaint, and thereby taking that matter away from the formal courts and bringing it within an industry-led process, which gives us that confidence that whatever outcome that that process will lead to is not a hammer, but rather it's a feather, because we seek to guide and to improve, but not to punish. Formal courts will punish you, but the Complaints Commission does not punish, but just helps the practitioners to improve their skill and be better. 2, it encourages the maintenance and development of genuine democracy, because we guarantee a free, independent, responsible practice of journalism. Amongst the mandates of this commission, if either government or any private individual, and this is something that not so many practitioners do know, if government does any act or conduct that undermines the freedom of expression of a journalist or the practice of that profession, then that individual journalist have recourse to come and complain, file a complaint against any state organ. There has been incidences where members of this profession have been denied audience in our counties. They've been harassed, the equipment being destroyed or confiscated. All those are matters that the commission has jurisdiction and can be able to give appropriate relief. 3, it also does provide a fair playing field where the practice of journalism is balanced against the ethical requirements, such as the need to protect the reputation and privacy of other people who are subject of the news. That is a constitutional requirement, that even if Article 33 guarantees that there's freedom of expression, freedom of the media, it is not absolute. Those who practice that profession ought and must respect the privacy of their subjects. Last but not least, it does protect the practice of journalism from the excesses of state regulation by providing a body whereby all those issues can be discussed in an atmosphere of collegiality. Because when you look at our processes, the very first thing when a complaint comes, we will notify the person who has been complained against. We will also invite the complainant, and the two of you, we take you to a caucus, and the first agenda will be mediation. Can you be able to mediate so that we reach a mutual outcome to whatever dispute that there is? Then lastly, we do fulfill also the objectives of alternative dispute resolution as required by Article 159. The formal court system is clogged with so many cases. Some take years. It has very technical processes and procedures. But for us, in terms of the law that sets up this commission, we operate on an informal basis, which is fast, efficient. We don't let technicalities to derail our work. You can be able to come file your complaint. If the other party has been notified and they're present, we can even be able to hear that dispute in a day or two and give a determination. So what commitments do we then give as a complaints body in the media sector? One, that our mandate will always be to serve in public interest and to try to reach a consensus whenever there are disputes, so that that freedom is not stifled, but there's also a remarkable improvement in terms of professionalism and standards. Then, of course, we enforce the code of conduct for the practice of journalism that is in the second schedule to the Media Council Act, and that is what guides us. Whatever it is, when you look at rules that require accuracy, the rules on bias, the protection of children, financial reporting, that is what guides us when we give a determination whether there has been a breach or not. Then, of course, we have a commission that is staffed by members who have made a mark in their own individual spheres. They are very capable. Whenever matters come, they can be able to give a just adjudication. Then we are also accessible as a commission. We accept complaints to be even filed online via email, okay? Via WhatsApp. You can just send it when you have our contacts, and that will be reduced, and then we communicate to you and tell you, we have your complaint, we need A, B, C, D for this matter to be adjudicated on. And then we're also transparent. All our hearings are held in public, and anyone can be able to attend. We are also flexible in our operations. We don't look into technicalities, and we also strive to be effective when we serve the industry. And then in terms of the sanctions which we give, courts will fine. in terms of punitive monetary. The Act, however, though it does give the Commission the leeway to award fines, the maximum being 500,000 for media enterprises and 100,000 for journalists. But the principle is a fine ought to be the very last resort, because we are talking about ethics. And ethics, we should just deal with issues of apology, correction, retraction, and so on and so forth. So then the clarion call for us this afternoon will be that this is like a chain, and in a chain, everyone has a part to play. For the media enterprises, they do have the obligation to train, both the initial training and ongoing training of journalists on matters the code of conduct. To the larger industry, they have a role to be the public watchdog, to make sure that information which is received and imparted is fair and accurate and verified. To the regulators, the Media Council of Kenya, they have that obligation to develop a complaints mechanism which fits our legal and cultural environment, and core of which, and in any country, before anyone is made to suffer consequences, they ought to be given an opportunity to be heard first before a punishment is meted. Then to our stakeholders in the civil society, we can also partner, and you can also help this industry by raising awareness to the members of the public and informing them that they have a right to complain whenever matters are published about them that they either find inaccurate or negative. Then lastly, to government, which has the mandate to enforce and promote the Bill of Rights, including the right to freedom of expression, access to information, and freedom of establishment of the media, we will urge that the government also ought to show commitment, as they have done, to not interfere with editorial content and the independence of journalists, to practice their profession without coercion, without being harassed, or without being intimidated. So those four are the key roles that the Commission serves in promoting press freedom in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we be heard from where we are? Thank you. I'm told I'm the only one who doesn't have a mic, so I'll have to use this one. Thank you very much, Chair of the Complaints Commission, for shedding light on this mysterious commission in the minds of others, but that has a very clear mandate. I'd now like to invite the panel to respond to your presentation by way of answering, some specific questions. And the first person that I'd like to call is Linda. I hope she can hear us. And Linda, who's the head of legal at Radio Africa, you appeared before the Complaints Commission. You have appeared before the Complaints Commission previously. As you listened to the chair of the commission speak, what was your experience when you were before this commission? Are there any observations that you'd like to share with us from your own experience? And would you rather litigation or this commission if you had the choice? Linda, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Booker. I hope everyone can hear me.
We can hear you. Just go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. To just answer what Dr. Booker has asked, and in addition to what the chair said about the Complaints Commission being possibly the best place for the media to be able to resolve any kind of disputes in terms of defamation, in terms of ethics, in terms of anything to do with the journalistic practice. Personally, as an institution, we find that sorry, the Complaints Commission is the best place and should be the first point of resolving media disputes. Like the chair said, when matters go to court, it never ends well for the media houses most of the time. Like 99% of the time, whether you have a good case or whether your case is not so defensible, you'll always get very big judgments, and justified amounts of money are awarded in terms of damages. And even when you go to appeal, sometimes when you're going to appeal to a court of appeal that probably, like in our case, some of the court of appeal judges have sued us for defamation as well. So the chances of fairness there are a bit, you never know. And then as well, if you want to appeal to the Supreme Court for whatever reason, you've still been sued by some judges from the Supreme Court. So generally, when you go into a lawsuit in a court as a media house, chances of succeeding are very low. Chances of it being fair, even when you're wrong, are very limited. Because I don't know why that happens. I don't know why. Maybe it's because judges, like maybe the the commissioners, judges are not so well versed in media laws and what's fair and what's not fair and how far they can go in ensuring that they're not punitive. We get the message, we get that we were wrong, but don't punish us. Yeah. So my experience with the Complaints Commission, and I think this is my favorite place to just canvass issues where someone has brought up a complaint. Because first of all, the process is very straightforward, it's very fair. When you start, for example, with a complaint form, when someone is going to make a complaint, the complaint form is very well structured. It allows someone to give the nature of the complaint so that we are clear on that. And then it allows someone to give the date of publication so that it's even easier, I think, in an early stage to be able to know that the date of publication, is it within the statute of limitations? Because after 1 year, for example, you can't bring a claim for defamation. So early on, because sometimes when in lawsuits, you have now to, when someone sues out of time, you have to go to court now to argue that the suit is time barred, which is money for us because we have to pay for representation. And then it's also a lot of time because before you even had, maybe 1 or 2 years have passed, and then sometimes eventually your application is not allowed either way because they feel like this person has a right to be heard even though they filed their suit out of time. So with the complaint form for the Complaints Commission, at least in the preliminary stages, it's easier to see that this person is late. Under the law, they can't bring this complaint in now. And then the complainant also gives reasons for their complaint. So it's very straightforward. There's no someone, for example, in a plaint, they would be so vague or general in what their complaint is or how they were wronged or how they were defamed. So in the commission's complaint form, you ask, why are you complaining? Was it misleading? Was it incomplete? Was it inaccurate? Was it inflammatory? Was it biased? Was it racist? Did it promote negative ethnicity? Was it sexist? And then if you have other things that you need to explain as to why you're complaining, then you're able to put them down. And I think that's a good way of narrowing down on what the issue is as opposed to canvassing it in a blanket way in court. And then the remedies sought, like, for example, an apology. An apology with the Media Council, an apology is not seen as an admission of guilt. It's seen as what it is, an apology. Or because in other contexts, someone will take an apology as an admission of guilt, and in a lawsuit, that will be taken as just mitigation, not that you're not guilty, but it's just mitigation. It's just making whatever you've done less worse, which shouldn't be the case, because when someone apologizes, they shouldn't be punished for it. And then there's the remedies, there's correction, there's clarification, you can do a follow-up story. And then if like the chairman said, if it comes to the extent where you have to pay money, it's probably something that you can pay, and it's not punishing you, because like if we get judgments of, like in a year we can get judgments of up to 30 million in different cases altogether in total. That's at the bare minimum. So when you have to lose 30 million to a judgment, even when you appeal, your chances of success are very limited. And even the appeal process, when you appeal, the court requires you to deposit this amount into court. Maybe you don't have it then. So that will be the condition for your matter to be appealed. If you can't deposit the amount, then it becomes a problem, because not all media entities have the financial muscle to deposit before, so that an appeal can proceed. So that creates a lot of challenges for us. So I feel like the Complaints Commission is, I don't know why people don't know about it. I don't know why you people don't publicize yourself enough, because this is the only place where the decision would be fair. And even after the complaint is done, the media is given a chance to, the media house is given a chance to respond to the complaint. And then thereafter you do, the complainant will have to do submissions on the disability of their complaint. And then now you proceed to mediation. So everyone has a role to play, not just to sue and then you wait for the judgment. Here you go, everyone is given a fair chance. And the fact that the Complaints Commission is more or less a media dispute resolution place, it does not mean that they'll favor the media. The situation is balanced, and you come out of there, everyone comes out of there feeling like it's been fair. For us, we've had matters there that have ended well. Sometimes the complainant sees the point in what you are saying, where, for example, the story was balanced and fair, and where it was a public interest story, so there was no other way of reporting it but as it was. And then they withdraw the complaints, because the setup allows for discussion, allows for you to see where I'm coming from and you to see where you're coming from. Yeah, so that's it for now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Leader. Let me now turn it over to Professor Murej. Professor, you served in the previous commission and determined several cases. And, you know, as current commissioners, and even for the audience that is joining us here and virtually, we are interested in your experience in serving in that commission, lessons, suggestions, and perhaps one of the cases that exemplifies why the Complaints Commission has a role to play in promoting media freedom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Booker. It's quite a while since I served in the Complaints Commission, but I must admit that so many cases in my mind seem like they happened yesterday. Number one, because they were really high-profile cases. And by high profile, I mean that they involved, some of the political elite in this country, both from, the sector of politics, but also from the media industry itself. And they very much touched on some of the cardinal issues that the Media Act, the schedule on on ethics talks about. I think also they were very very strongly publicized in the media, to the extent that coming back to your last question, I could suggest that that kind of publicity, either coming from the cases themselves or through the proactive work of the Complaints Commission and the Media Council, could actually, drive the discussions around the role of the Complaints Commission. Number two, why I remember the cases very, very clearly in my mind is mainly because it made me, even as a scholar, appreciate the kind of professional and organizational challenges that media organizations go through. Sometimes the kind of challenges that make it not as a matter of design, but as a result of the kind of work that the media does, that there are mistakes that can be made that if not adjudicated through a body such as the Complaints Commission, could easily go to the courts and be decided on without the benefit of the fact that journalists and media houses work under pressure, and therefore sometimes I used to argue for the sake of the country and democracy, it becomes wiser to err on the side of caution in terms of punishing the media instead of coming down on them and therefore ending up with a kind of chilling effect that the chair of the Complaints Commission spoke about. But commenting mainly from the perspective of information as a public good, and this is where I feel a lot of work needs to be done. For information to be a public good, in my mind, I think both the people and the media have got to really appreciate the meaning of a public good. Why is information important? But more importantly, why is wholesome, trustworthy, sufficient information important? Because information as a public good has got certain qualifications. That is why the Media Complaints Commission comes in, because when you look at the functions of the Complaints Commission, apart from adjudication, there is also the second one that speaks mainly to ensuring that the media upholds the tenets of good journalism. And it is possible, and especially in the world of today, we're talking about fake news, we're talking about deep fakes and so on and so forth. It has become extremely difficult for most people really to establish the difference between what is wholesome information and what is not. The days when you were growing up, you listened to the Voice of Kenya or KBC, you had your own question marks, but you had no alternative. Right now, the challenge, though, is that, everything sounds and looks fake unless somebody tells you it is actually correct. People are consuming information not so much as a public good, but as something that you just consume for the sake of it, or people are peddling so many falsehoods, while the public actually needs wholesome, useful, trustworthy information. And for citizenship to be real citizenship, it must be underpinned by wholesome, trustworthy information. I know I can talk for a very long time, but now responding to your question regarding what example comes to my mind, let me give you two. Number one, there was a case brought by, the former head of the public service, Francis Muthaura, at the height of the ICC case, and listened to it for quite some time. I remember that particular time, Nancy Baraza, the former DCJ, was actually the chair of the Complaints Commission. I'm answering why it sticks head, because I remember the very day when she was appointed as DCJ, I'm actually the one who received the news on Nation Alert, and I told her, this is the news that are breaking. And we had a session both with Muthaura and Kilukumi and everybody having to congratulate her. But why that case was extremely important, and this is why even journalists should take the Complaints Commission positively, and some of these cases should be made compulsory reading, because they domesticate a lot of these issues to do with media ethics that we only read about in textbook authored by Western scholars. A case where students can actually relate to what happened. And the short of it is that we realized after listening to the case comprehensively that the stories that Mudhaura had complained about actually were written very much based on hot air. And this can be extremely damning for the journalistic profession. Another reason as to why it comes to my mind, I will never forget, is that this may be a bit controversial, but the journalist who was behind that case actually broke down when issues of ethics bared their head. And the questioning, of course, people like Mudhaura, Uhuru Kenyatta would come with their Top Gun lawyers. But sitting as members of the Complaints Commission, ours was very, very simple. We just went slowly and said, okay, you wrote a story, take us back. What we expect of journalists to do is X, Y, Z. Did you or did you not? For instance, the question about giving Mudhaura an opportunity for his side of the story to be heard. The journalist said, he placed a call around about 2 or some minutes to 2, got Mudhaura's secretary, who said that, he was busy, could he try another time? And for the journalist, that was sufficient. Now sufficient, and the editorial, whatever is happening around about 3, and the story is gonna run. So he went and ran with the story, and the question was, do you know the magnitude of the story do you know the impact? Do you know what a transgression it would be to run a story which, to all intents and purposes, is based on hot air, simply because you've got deadlines? Couldn't you wait for another day? And that story read, splashed on the front page, and it went on and on and on. And then all of a sudden I came to realize that sitting in the Complaints Commission, even for those people who have worked in the media, people who are academics and so on and so forth, it forces you, being a neutral person, sometimes to even put aside some of your ideological leanings, because some of us ideologically are so much pro press freedom that would allow for probably even 90% transgression, and we say, you know what? But then when you are sitting down and you are looking at the ethical tenets, and somebody is taking you through their lives. Let me also share with you something that I will never forget. In that day, I think the day I'm referring to, because Mudhaura came almost 2 or 3 times, Mudhaura, I'd never seen Francis Mudhaura look like that. He was weather beaten, and I was just listening, and so you would ask the journalists, the person you are writing about, head of the whatever, do you know where he's coming from in terms of his profession, his friends, and blah blah? Do you know what the implication of this is for our politics as a country? Do you know? But basically, as a journalist, and what it made me realize is that a lot of people depend on the media. I listened to the sessions in the morning today, and one of the speakers or contributors complained about the fact that increasingly people don't like in the West. By the way, people trust media in Kenya a lot more. And what would be dangerous for me, for the sake of the public good and democracy, is that people will trust the media even when the media, in some instances, is not giving them wholesome, truthful, and useful information. So I think in short, to answer you, the work of the Complaints Commission is extremely important. How I wish that the public itself will come to appreciate that and embrace the Complaints Commission even more. There are cases where people would make a lot of noise, and Kenyans are very good at doing that, complaining social media. Just like the middle class has been criticized, we make a lot of noise. Come election day, we oversleep, have our coffee, and we expect elections to run and our candidates to win. Kenyans complain a lot in the social media, but even those cases where it will serve them better and serve the country better, if they complain to the Complaints Commission, they don't. And then you start wondering, what is wrong? The chair mentioned about provisions for compensating journalists when their tools of trade are damaged in the course of their work. We've sung this song many times. I don't remember a case coming before us, people saying, our equipment was, and then you start wondering, why are we doing this? I think some kind of public education needs to be undertaken so that we really come to appreciate what the public good is and realize that the work that the Complaints Commission does enriches this country simply because it is a neutral ground where even government is not given, a carte blanche freedom to come down on the media. If they have got any complaint against the media, the first port of call is the Complaints Commission. If there is intermedia disputes, the first port of call is the Complaints Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. I'd now like to turn this over to Mugambi. And, listening to Professor Murej and to Linda, are we, as a society, have we been accustomed to litigation as the only way to resolve conflicts? And what can we do to promote alternative dispute resolution in media disputes? Are we doing enough to promote alternative dispute resolution mechanisms? Where is the problem?
Thank you very much, Dr. I think we're by and large a litigious society. Like the society that represents me, the Law Society of Kenya. Okay. I joke that now it's being governed by court orders, because even signatures for bank accounts, appoint elections, all that is governed through court orders. But coming to issues for freedom of expression, freedom of the media, there's a place for petitions in the courts, because those petitions in the courts, that litigation has broadened the space within which the media can operate, within which freedom of expression can thrive, especially in non-mainstream media, if I may call it that, especially social media, where you find that organizations such as Katiba Institute, Article 19, Transparency International, have gone to court on behalf of bloggers and have had the courts declare certain provisions of draconian provisions of the law to be unconstitutional. Provisions of the law that stopped or limited the space within which we can express themselves. One of it being this crime of undermining a public figure, the crime of misuse of a telecommunication device, issues of criminal defamation. So for me, I think it is progressive where individuals now take journalists to court for civil defamation cases. That is highly progressive, because before, these individuals will be taken through criminal proceedings. So that is progressive, and there's a place for litigation for that kind of purpose. We also have litigation that is pending on the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. But what always surprises me is that the voice of the media is lacking in this litigation. You find that it is civil society, the Article 19s, the Katiba Institute, the Transparency International, that are litigating these matters. So I always ask myself the question, why is it that the Media Council, the Media Complaints Commission, professional bodies of journalists do not appear in some of these litigations as interested parties, for example? Because the issue of freedom of expression, even if it deals with a blogger, it has an impact on how a journalist will carry out their trade. When I think my colleague from Radio Africa was talking about the experience and some fines of, some awards of up to 30 million shillings, I ask myself, why is it that in these defamation cases against one media house, other media houses do not come in solidarity of that media house to explain that this is not only a defamation issue, this is a freedom of expression issue, this is a free press issue, so there's that gap. When one of the media houses of one of the journalists, for example, why doesn't the Editors Guild, the Kenya Union of Journalists, the Kenya Correspondents Association come as interested parties and say, well, our colleague may have said one or two things, however, we're here in solidarity as an interested parties because how you rule in this decision will determine how we ply our trade much later, because it brings that, what Professor said, that chilling effect. Because if you write this story, there will be, somebody will go to court on defamation and there'll be high costs, high fees, and high damages. But then if media houses, the point I'm trying to make is that if media houses, the Media Complaints Commission, for example, the Media Complaints Commission could appear as an interested party in some of these petitions and say, fine, you've sued this media house for defamation, but as an interested party, we can tell you there's another process within which this person, and amplify that within the media. So there's a place for litigation in terms of freedom of expression, Article 33, Article 34. Then the place of alternative dispute resolution definitely is there, especially where you are dealing with ethics, ethical issues relating to the practice of journalism. I'm always of the view that mediation, conciliation, negotiations where fundamental rights and freedoms are threatened is the wrong forum. The right forum is the court. If you are litigating a constitutional issue that will have an impact not only on the litigants but the society at large, then of course we need a finding of the courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, or the Supreme Court, whatever the situation may be. But where you're dealing with ethical issues, like what Professor said, like, did you ask that person for their side of the story? Did you look at, did you verify certain key details? Then that goes into the ethics and the practice of the profession of journalism. And then there comes the Complaints Commission, because the Complaints Commission has professionals who've practiced, who've taught journalism, who are experts, who perhaps may be media owners, and they understand how these ethical standards need to play themselves out in day-to-day practice. However, when you're talking about mediation, conciliation, and negotiation, there's always that imbalance of power. I think Professor said that some of the complainants will come with these big shot lawyers. Perhaps this may be a journalist of a media house that may not be in a position to afford legal representation. But there's always the question also, should there lawyers be involved in the Media Complaints Commission process? But of course, the Constitution provides the right to fair representation, the right to a fair trial, and due process. So when we are talking about alternative dispute resolution process, we need to think about that imbalance of power between either the complainant and the respondent. But definitely, when you're talking about ethical practices, alternative dispute resolution has a place, and it should, what we call in law, especially in international, exhausting remedies. First, when you exhaust those remedies within the statute, then you can go to court. But however, as I've said, there are other issues within that complaints mechanism that the proper forum is the courts.
Thank you very, very much. And I think that then leads me to Commissioner Dimas, litigation versus mediation. What is the approach of the Complaints Commission, and have we done enough to ensure that the public, the media, and other stakeholders that may have disputes with the media know where to go?
Well, thank you very much. As the chairperson had said earlier, the Media Complaints Commission is guided by the Media Council Act, but also constitutionally we are guided by the Article 48 on access to justice and Article 159 that basically sets out the judicial structure of this country. And it requires any body that metes out justice to consider alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. At the Complaints Commission, all the commissioners are trained mediators. This means that we are all certified to mediate on issues that may come our way. And just by looking at the statistics on how long it takes a matter that goes through the formal process of a hearing vis-a-vis one that goes through mediation, it is quite clear that mediation is the cheaper and faster and more efficient way to deal with disputes. Be that as it may, the parties must agree to mediation, and they must also know that they can choose to opt out at any time. And so where we find that parties are actually more free in terms of mediation because they control the process, as opposed to the other formal process where basically the format is a hearing. And when the parties control the process, it means they are more comfortable. It means that they basically feel empowered in terms of dealing with that dispute. At the Complaints Commission, we must inform parties that they can opt for mediation. And when we do that, we go through, as the chair said, a caucus, first of all, to set the rules and basically to hear from both parties. And what is emerging is that many disputants sometimes just want an apology, sometimes they just want to be heard or to be acknowledged. And so when mediation is the alternative that one would take, it means that justice basically will be reached at in a more amicable manner. Be that as it may, we find that the knowledge about the Complaints Commission itself is a little wanting. As commissioners, we find sometimes that the Communications Authority might speak to or act on a certain matter that, if you look at the law, would perhaps have been better tackled by the Complaints Commission. And so we really need to have like pointed campaigns to ensure that Kenyans and journalists know that they have a forum where they can run to whenever they feel their rights have been infringed. Another possible intervention, and this is something that we are actually also rolling out, is actually pointed partnerships and deliberate partnerships with, for example, the Law Society of Kenya, to ensure that they tell their members that there is also this alternative way of getting justice. For example, when someone feels aggrieved of a story. Being a lawyer myself, I know lawyers themselves would rather run to the courts because of the promise of damages and perhaps a better fee note at the end of it. But for the client, it would be better to come to the Complaints Commission because, first of all, it is faster. and more efficient, and we're not bound by certain rules, certain technicalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Dimas. I'm being warned that we are running out of time, and so I'm not going to ask my next set of questions, but I'm going to open it up to anybody in the audience who has a question. I know there are those joining us virtually. Is there any question from any member of the audience? Okay, seeing none. How about online? I hope you're not cutting anybody off. Okay. Any questions online? Okay. So in the absence of the questions, therefore, I hope Linda is still with us.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I have one more question for Linda. And Linda, if you're joining us, that one of the challenges that we seem to encounter as a commission is the whole issue of non-attendance, so that if there's a matter that's before us, we invite the media houses to come in and respond. In most cases, they do not appear before the commission. They don't respond to the summons, and as a result, a delay in the cases. So if the Complaints Commission is as effective as you have pointed out, and acts with speed, and looks at ways in which the conflicts are resolved outside of the court process, the penalties are not high, why is it that we still have a challenge of getting media houses to respond to summons, and so that the cases are not delayed? Why is that still a problem? Linda, unmute. Okay.
It's the host that was unmuting me. I can't unmute myself. All right. So on issues of non-attendance, I think this has been an issue because sometimes I used to go to the Complaints Commission. Can you all hear me? Dr. Buka, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So sometimes you go to the commission and not all media houses have representation, but sometimes even the complainants' lawyers or the complainants themselves don't show up. But I think for lawyers, especially in the media houses or law firms that represent media houses, especially if it's a law firm that's representing a media house, law firms, like Dimas said, they see courts as the only place where they can resolve such disputes. So sometimes, I don't want to call it contempt because that would be the wrong word. I think it's a lack of understanding of what the commission does. I, as an insider, because I started working in the media as a sub-editor, I think I understand the importance of the Complaints Commission, but someone who's in the legal practice immediately, it would take some time for them to see, okay, so I'm going to this commission, and then what will be the outcome? Is it challenging enough for me? But it's the same process, it's the same legal process that we go through in the court, and it's a different experience, but it's worthwhile because of the outcome. Some feedback. All right, so as I was saying before the feedback, I think it's an issue of not understanding what the Complaints Commission does and the benefit it has to the media houses. I think that's where the problem was over the years. Since I started my experience with the commission in around 2014, the main issue has been there's not much engagement to inform us of what the commission does. We just get the complaints and then we have to go to the commission. So I wish there was more of just an understanding of how the commission works, what the ultimate process is, and how matters are resolved. That would be it. I would attribute non-attendance to that, just lack of knowledge.
Thank you. So it's not contemptuous, it's lack of knowledge. And so a lot more in terms of, ensuring that people know about the role of the Complaints Commission. Thank you very much, Linda. Now, allow me to invite one of the members of the Complaints Commission who's in the audience, Henry Maina, who has also worked at Article 19, to just speak to us about what he's hearing, having been in the commission, served in the commission, worked at Article 19, and is now sitting on the other side, listening to this discussion. Henry, what are you hearing? Is there a roaming mic somewhere? Henry is right here.
Thank you. I think largely that the users of the Media Complaints Commission do not know much about it. So that's a big thing. I think efforts would be made to reach out to the media industry more and Kenyans to understand the functions and the functionality of the Media Complaints Commission. But I think this also ought to reach out to the other regulators because the fact that Commissioner Dimas indicates that we have an overreach, a regulatory overreach from some of the other regulators who make decisions that may be considered unconstitutional because they don't give a hearing to any of the parties becomes problematic, and we can be still able to hear them. The second part, perhaps what I need to point out to litigants or would-be litigants is that don't fear the issue that some parties may arrive with the big boys, the lawyers. The process would be made simple for all of you, and they would not have a bigger bite at the cherry just because they have come big. I think I've seen the late Nzamba Kitonga and others, Feroz Norji, I think, appearing. So we've seen senior counsels appearing, sometimes with parties that don't have a lawyer, but we've shown that balance by ensuring that even parties that are not represented are well heard and we clarify the process to them. So even mediation, we would not allow lawyers to sit in throughout, but if they do, we will try and ensure we create a balance so that they are not perhaps harassing the other parties. The third point, which perhaps we need to bring out more, is that media houses that have acquiesced and accepted, because now it is an issue of constitution and law, they don't have an option. Those that have previously either out of contempt or out of understanding not shown up. Now it is a requirement of law for them to show up. So increasingly, those who do not show up, decisions would be made in their absence. So those summary decisions may punish you more because you didn't have an opportunity to clarify your side of the story. And it is important. But the last thing I want to speak to is that it's not just junior lawyers and junior journalists that have ethical challenges. In that Mudaura case, the journalist involved was a senior journalist. In fact, he is a chevening scholar like me. So breaches happen. But the good thing is that that discussion was at the Media Complaints Commission. If that case had been in High Court, we would not be talking about the 10 million or 30 million awards. Because remember, Mudaura was the head of civil service at that time. So if judges were being awarded 10 million, then it would have followed that his award would have been higher. And the issue of even civil defamation would have become untenuous in Kenya because we tend to copy. Once a higher ceiling is awarded, subsequent decisions tend to want to mirror nearly the same figure. So it will help us as Kenyans to, one, accept to resolve problems in the right fora. There is also a challenge where we want to resolve all our problems in social media. So instead of people filing complaints, people decide to call each other and institution names over the line. But you can file your complaint, you will be heard, and a determination would be made. I think this Complaints Commission has made a decision that all complaints filed within a year, within 6 months, we will make effort to hear and determine those matters unless the parties themselves drag their feet. So it will not be for us not being there and creating a platform. So that's what I can say out of this. And journalists, I think the biggest nightmare is that we are good at complaining in our articles, in our platforms, but we have not received a single complaint from a journalist who's been harmed or whose equipment has been taken, seeking that they are compensated, even where we've done outreach and explained to them. So for me, this sometimes makes me feel I'm crying more than the bereaved, because I keep saying, file your complaint, and then we would see how best to handle it. But then people ask me inbox, Henry, how are you going to help us? You know, so I'm happy that I am part of this commission for the time being. But if journalists are not willing to follow the rule of law, because rule of law requires of us that we are not complainants and judges in our own courts. We must be willing to report complaints for people who have harmed us so that the matter is duly determined. Of course, there are times when journalists are equally wrong. And those who are enthusiastic, you remember the Echesa Malala cases? Do you remember that? A few of us may remember, where journalists are deployed. These are professional, accredited journalists, but are deployed by politicians to do propaganda and mudslinging. When such a complaint comes, you will be punished. The politicians will not stand there for you. So I think we need to be warned, because some of us are being deployed to engage in this deep state propaganda, creating memes and photoshops that malign other people. But the law would not defend you just because you are a journalist. If you've engaged in insults or in publishing defamatory matter, you would be punished. You would be lucky, perhaps, if you come to the Media Complaints Commission, the damage awards and the fines will not be as high. But if you are going to be charged under computer misuse law or the penal code, you're likely to be jailed for a period that is more than 3 years, which would mean you would never even get a certificate of good conduct for a breach you would have avoided. So that would be my take.
Thank you very much, Henry. I think there's a question on the chat, and this is a question that should be answered either by Dina or Rebecca. And as they're trying to figure out who between them answers that question, I'm just going to ask the panel to share their final thoughts and, taking into consideration the context in which the Complaints Commission is currently working. We are getting into an election year, and there's likely to be all manner of content out there. There's likely to be infractions, from journalists and from media houses, and it's going to be a very, a highly charged season. So with that in mind, as you're thinking about, your final thoughts, where do we go from here? That's the question that I'd like you to respond to. Dina?
Before I get to the question that is on the chat, I wanted to offer an observation from the debate that has been going on about why media people don't come to the Complaints Commission. I will only comment to the extent that I have interacted with the journalists who have encountered challenges in the line of duty. And I would say that it's quite unpopular, but I'll say it anyway. Due to the work we do as journalists, because I have nothing against journalists having just come from the newsroom the other day, due to the episodic nature of the work that we do, you will find that most journalists are not patient enough to follow through the process. They will ask you, yes, you're telling me to go to the Complaints Commission, my camera was broken, are you going to buy me a camera? You know, they want to be listened to and given results there and then, without appreciating the fact that whenever they come to the process and follow through due process, whenever a ruling or a determination is made, it has an impact for the industry. Not only it's not only about what is in it for me as Dina, as a journalist who has been attacked, or whether I'm being compensated or not, it has a precedent. The same challenge we encounter when we are telling people, when you've been denied information, you need to make an appeal to the CAJ. They'll tell you, you know, it's a long process. I don't have that time. When they report a case at the police station, it becomes a challenge getting that journalist to go back to the police station to follow up or even come along with a witness. So I'm thinking that it would do more than just educating them on what they stand to benefit. Then it will have to be more than just that. They'll need to be sensitized on what does following the process mean for the rest of the industry. Having said that, going to the question that is on the chart, and I believe it's the second part, which is how is the council dealing with media houses employing unqualified and not accredited staff? I'll just make one comment and then hand over the microphone to Rebecca, who is in charge of accreditation. One of the solutions that we have been offering is reaching out to these media houses, because the new accreditation guidelines envisage or have tried to bring to the fold to cast the net wider to media practitioners who are already working in media houses and are offering critical services which are critical to the editorial functions of the media houses. So we train them with a view of ensuring that they understand at least the basics of journalism, media law, and ethics, so that then, because we can't deny the role that they play in the industry, then it's better to just bring them on board, train them so that they are professional in what they do. So Rebecca can complete the rest of the part.
I am not sure whether there is anything more to add to that, but what I can say is that we all know that under the law, it is not illegal for media houses to employ unqualified staff. And I think it's time that if there are laws to ensure that media houses employ people who are qualified to do the job. But of course, as the Media Council, we cannot come down hard on media houses without that law. However, that said, we all know that it is important to recognize that there are people who work in the media, and are essential and are a critical part of the news process. And as Dinah has said, the only thing we do as a commission is to ensure that the media practitioners at least understand the rules and regulations that people who practice in media have to obey. For example, the Code of Conduct for the Practice of Journalism. If they understand that, then they are bound by the same rules as trained journalists. I am not sure how to answer the first part of the question, because as a media, we are just a media regulator. We do not deal per se with the welfare of journalists in terms of provision of healthcare or insurance cover. But we encourage media houses to ensure that their staff are well taken care of in terms of making sure that they are well remunerated and they have insurance cover. We all have seen what has happened during COVID time. Journalists, some of them have actually gone through a lot because of lack of a medical cover. So it is our job to just encourage employers to ensure that they take care of their staff in the right manner. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Time is up. Is it Bunny, patient? Oh, okay, because it's the last one, in 1 minute, patience, and then a quick round to the panel.
Thank you. So maybe I wanted to just chip in and to ask maybe, or rather to throw a challenge to the Complaints Commission, because I have been at the KNCHR, worked for the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights before, and one of the things that the problems we had with journalists is the same thing. They would like us then to help them, report their cases, but then the thing is you have to report your case so that there's an official complaint, and that's the same challenge that I hear here. But listening to, or rather in the era that we are in, is it possible that we can try and make sure that, or rather maybe come up with a system that is kind of automated to simplify the processes, so that the process does not have to be a physical process? Think of, the journalist who is in Turkana or somewhere in Tana River who cannot come to Nairobi, for example. Last week, we saw a challenge by CS Farida Karonei, where now we have automated the whole land process, the tracking system that is in place for you to track your complaints or to everything that you want to do with the lands ministry is now automated. So is it possible that maybe now it's time for us to start thinking of how can we ensure that our complaint system is actually a system that does not have to be physical and that the processes can be interlinked, especially if you're going to deal with more than one offices, for example, IPOA, ODPP, or KNCHR, then therefore journalists find it easier that I can report my case from wherever I am and it can be tracked and I can follow the processes. And only until a point that I need to be there physically, if there's need for me to be there, then maybe that's the problem. Then maybe that's the time we will probably start seeing more cases being reported. I don't know.
Thank you. And the chair will respond to that question, but let's have closing comments, and the chair will have the last word as he responds to your question. Mugambi?
I think you asked about the way forward and what all this means in electioneering period. I think the biggest challenge is outside the formal regulatory regime, because as you've seen, misinformation and fake news, fake dips has already started thriving, and some of it is actually affected media houses. Sometimes when you see in WhatsApp groups or on Facebook or on Twitter, the first page of the dailies is usually shared. But these days you really can't tell which one is the correct one or which one is not, because some are fairly well done. Even the font, the tones, so until the media house comes much later and says, no, this is not our headline. So, of course, mainstream media, there is the council, there is the Complaints Commission. But in my view, the biggest challenge is outside that regulatory framework. But there's something, of course, that can be done. One is the MCC, MCK, perhaps with the Communication Authority, developing tools that journalists or the public can use to identify what may be misinformation on fake news. Because those tools are available, especially to identify fake dips, videos, photos, memes, and that kind. Then, of course, education or amplifying that message within the media houses that misinformation or fake news is out there, and this is how you can identify it, because I think that is lacking. Then, of course, there is the need to protect the democratic space, because I believe there'll be a lot of defamation suits, suits trying to claw back. And as I said, if one, in my view, if one journalist or one media practitioner is taken to court, for example, for defamation, I think the professional bodies, MCK, MCC, should show solidarity and appear as interested parties and clarify the role of the Media Complaints Commission, the principles and nuances of Article 34, freedom of the press, Article 33, and perhaps that way there'll be better protection as we go towards the electioneering period. Asante.
Asante sana. Professor?
No, thank you so much. Way forward, I would really encourage the Media Council of Kenya and the Complaints Commission to up the public sensitization mechanisms. You know, whatever works. You know, if it is social media. You know, there are so many groups that people belong to. Some of them are professional. You know, and when decisions are made, you know, sometimes even, for instance, if a media organization is required to make an apology, many a times people actually miss the more important things that, you know, the whole process went through. I know there are times when decisions would be summarized and put there, you know, but I think that needs to be reintroduced. But even when cases are being heard, you know, to try and disseminate that so that those who are willing to even attend, for instance, I personally would really love to attend all the whatever, you know, for so many reasons, so that at least with time, people come to appreciate the importance of the Complaints Commission, not just for journalists, primarily for journalists and media houses, but if this becomes a national issue, when we talk about information as a public good, this is extremely important. You know, those who appreciate the history that we've gone through, especially in the you know, agitation for multi-party democracy, you know, the 80s and 90s. Many a times when we go through a political process that is developing and normalizing, people do not appreciate the fact that it has taken a lot to get us where we are right now. And part of it was informed by what the media actually did. This is something that we need to not only appreciate, we need to protect. Once we've gone through a process of now mainstreaming the protection of journalism, then we need to also mainstream the enjoyment of, you know, of that, and how best to do it, but for people just to realize, for them to be empowered, after knowledge that they can act. If the chair said you can complain through, you know, email or, you know, WhatsApp, for people to know, even those cases where people who may not be very powerful, they complain, for those to be highlighted, stories to be written about them, you know, push until people come to realize that, oh, well, here is an institution and a space that all of us, for the sake of the country, we actually need to protect and to, you know, to enhance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Commissioner Dimas?
Well, I think the Complaints Commission is an important cog in safeguarding freedom and independence of the media, which in turn safeguards our democracy. It was put there, we are here to serve Kenyans and more so the media fraternity. And so mine is to challenge the apathy from journalists and say, perhaps try us and see what we can do. Yeah.
Thank you. And lastly, Chair.
The question about our adaptability, the question about our adaptability and innovation. Well, we all know that it's a new normal since this pandemic came. Every institution is moving to IT platforms. The judiciary is doing it. And I'm pleased to announce that as a Media Complaints Commission, we are also on that journey. Like right now, all our mentions are being done virtually. You don't have to come there physically. All our mentions are being done virtually, and in due course, we are also going to have hearings which are done virtually. So long as you send a complaint via email, we notify you electronically through email. We can even hold sessions online and have those issues determined. So there's no going back. It is online and it is accessible.
Thank you very, very much. I'd like us to appreciate our panel. Let's not forget we have Linda who's joined us, so we're also appreciating Linda who's joining us remotely. Why don't we clap for the panel? And for the audience that has joined us virtually, when we began, you were about 45. I think now the numbers have dropped to about 34. So why don't we also appreciate those that are joining us virtually? Thank you very, very much for this, very engaging session, and as a first step towards creating that awareness that the Media Complaints Commission really wants to do, so that people know that the Complaints Commission exists, and that if you're aggrieved, there's a place for you to come, and seek a redress. Thank you very much, Mugambi Laibuta, Professor Murej, Commissioner Dimas, and Chair William Okech, and not forgetting Linda Musita. Asante sana. Over to you, Mwakazi.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Big round of applause to the panel. Thank you so much, Dr. Nancy Buka. Wow, we've come to the end of today's session. We want to say thank you so much for staying with us. We just have one more thing as we close, and of course tomorrow is a big day, the annual Journalism Excellence Award, so you don't want to miss that. But in the meantime, as we prepare for the final remarks, we've heard about the clarion call for solidarity, and I can't help but think of the race of life. And tomorrow we will also witness another major race. You see, in the past, I think the story has been like this. Somebody passes you, you hit them. You don't celebrate them, you hit them. Then sometimes, if you cannot win by running, you fly. That may just be the only option. Then sometimes when you fall down, you just have to pick yourself up because you've been working hard. You cannot stay down looking at your wounds. You pick yourself up, and maybe, just maybe, you may be the one winning the race. But you know what? A powerful lesson we can learn from our brother. Our brother was just about to win, but he couldn't make it. Others were passing by. Others were winning, going. But his Kenyan brother, our brother, showing all of us the power of saying, you know what, sometimes it's not just about winning. It's about picking that brother so that together we can finish the race. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, as we close, we want to join online for the closing remarks. Please put your hands together for Ms. Susan Karago, Board Member, Media Council of Kenya. Are we set? So we're just waiting for Miss Susan Karago, board member, Media Council of Kenya, to give us the final remarks. Well, in the meantime, I'd kindly call upon Bwana Victor Bwire. A big round of applause for him. Asante.
Thank you. Me in the old weather, so when things feel like that one IT, I come to step in. So colleagues, once more, on behalf of the Media Council of Kenya, led by the chair of the board and the chair of the Complaints Commission, the commissioners present, the board members present, staff from the Media Council of Kenya who worked tirelessly to ensure that this happens. Obviously, Dina Ondari, Rebecca Mutiso, Jamila Yasho, Lilian Achieng, Lorena Achieng. I see Jacob Nyongesa, Wilba. I see Julie. I see Simon. The others have left, but on behalf of that whole team, on behalf of our technical crew, our colleagues who have managed the IT, our MC, Johnson Mwakazi, who has done wonderful, our translators, our Chemweno, I can see the presidential photographer, the deputy president for the Kenya Editors Guild, Zubeda, who has been with us here the whole day. I think once good things have been said, you don't add others. So I want once more to thank you all for the time, the commitment, the research you have put in your papers, those who have listened, those who have responded, and the recommendations that have been made here. I am sure the program colleagues from the Media Council of Kenya who lead the various formations and teams, let it not be things that have come up from the discussions that would obviously need to be implemented so that next year, May, if we are coming here to review what we have been doing, then we must show some of the recommendations that have come from here. It then makes a meaning. But if it's just a talk show and people talk and we leave and nothing happens, it discourages. So we want, without wasting any of your time, to thank you once more. Our partners, or development partners, I think development partners in Mambo ya Barabara. I mean, so the partners that we worked with, USAID, National, the National Health Insurance Fund, Communication Authority of Kenya, Katiba Institute, Transparency International, KCB, the Canadian High Commission, obviously the government of Kenya, who are the biggest funders of the Media Council of Kenya, Editors Guild, Kenya Union of Journalists, KCA, AMWIC. We want to thank you so much. And want once more to invite you tomorrow, where we will be doing the annual Journalist of the Year award. You are invited here in the same room, 2 p.m. to 6. And Bwana CEO, Bwana Moyo is around here and said, given that it's the evening, after 6, they are there, we can also take a cup of tea on his bill. So colleagues, let's come and acknowledge and appreciate the colleagues, because this is a 2-day event. It started today, it will culminate tomorrow in the recognition of nearly 62 journalists. There are 1,030 applicants. The selection team and judging panel did work that number to nearly 110. That's finalists. We have 62 winners across 4 categories. And it's wonderful. If you looked at some of the stories that have won the awards, the final, you then just wonder, when people say journalism is dead in Kenya, you think we have 2 Kenyas. Because those are wonderful stories that has been done by our own journalists, newsrooms, right up from the biggest media houses to the smallest. I mean, you would see local-based community journalists winning in big awards, A+, and it encourages. So let's come and join and appreciate them. So without wasting any much ado, much as the deadly curfew has been extended, so this room is still paid for, and even the next, you can sit around and also socialize and exchange views. So while we stop the meeting here for officially, but we don't say socialization has stopped. So we want to encourage you to continue discussing the speech by the speaker on the pay for journalists, even over a cup of tea. So wenzangu, jioni mzuri, take care of yourselves and remain safe. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Victor Bwire. Thank you so much. It was an honor moderating this particular day's session. Asanteni. God bless you. See you at work. And of course, Jane Commander Dynasty Photography, thank you for the photos. Well done. You took some amazing photos of the event. Thank you so much. All the best.
I wanna feel it right inside me, oh yeah. I wanna walk into the beat of the drum. I want my loved ones all around me, oh yeah. We together as one, we're all the same. Oh yeah, yeah, together as one, let's celebrate and let the world know. We're gonna give the world a party. Oh yeah. No matter where you're from, you're welcome to stay. We gotta. We love Africa. Here we stand, Mama Africa. We love Africa. Here we are, Mama Africa. We love Africa. Here we stand, Mama Africa. We love Africa. We're together as one, we're all the same. We together as one. let's celebrate.